We're going to talk about the RAAS system, the RAAS, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. This works to raise the blood pressure. What happens? Body senses blood pressure's low. Liver releases angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen then is floating around. The kidneys are triggered then to release renin. Renin then links up with angiotensinogen to form angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 then heads over to the lungs, and in the lungs, it meets up with ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. If someone is taking ACE inhibitors, this is where this process stops. So I don't take ACE inhibitors, so this process is still going to keep going. From the ACE section, it becomes angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 floats on to the adrenal glands, and that is where aldosterone is then excreted by the adrenal glands. Now, aldosterone is what increases the blood pressure. Does it one of two ways. First way, it vasoconstricts the arterioles in the kidneys. So it creates that extra pressure, vasoconstricts, love that. Second way, it increases the reabsorption of sodium. Increases the fluid, increasing the pressure, brings that blood pressure up. However, with the increase of sodium, this depletes the amount of potassium that the patient would have. So we definitely have to monitor the amount of potassium, their potassium levels. From there, we're going to touch back on angiotensin 2. So angiotensin 2 stimulates the posterior pituitary gland to release ADH. And ADH is the second natural antidiuretic that the body produces. Diuretic is typically the water pills that patients take that obviously makes them go to the bathroom a lot. Gets rid of that extra fluid, helps them not get into fluid overload, things of that nature. But the antidiuretic or antidiuretic does the opposite. So with angiotensin 2 stimulating the release of ADH, this leads to the kidneys keeping water, and that increases the blood volume, which is awesome. At the same time, this stimulates the thirst mechanism. Now, the mechanism of thirst occurs when the body is going on and it realizes I have a low amount of fluids, but I have a high amount of solvents. So I have a high amount of solutes, So very high concentration. It needs to dilute that a little bit, a lot of it. From here, the hypothalamus releases the ADH because that is where it is made, and it is stored in the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus releases the ADH, and the ADH then goes to the kidneys. More specifically, it goes to the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts. And instead of having that extra water being excreted via urine, it's going to have that water be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. By that water being reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, it's getting added to the plasma, which corrects that fluid volume deficit, decreasing the plasma osmolarity back to normal. Fantastic. Sounds great. However, if this keeps going, aren't we going to go into a fluid overload? So then how does the body know when to stop this process? How do we prevent fluid overload without thinking about it? That is where the natriuretic peptides come in, the ANP and the BNP. ANP is atrial natriuretic peptide, and this is released by the heart cells when the atrial walls are stretched. So with that excess fluid that we have going on in the body, Eventually, it's going to get back to the heart. And when it gets back to the heart, it's going to start swelling when the heart gets overwhelmed, overworked, whatever the case may be. So when those walls start swelling, the A and P is going to be released, and that is how that occurs. At the same time, or more severe, whatever the case is, BNP is the other natriuretic peptide. So BNP is the brain natriuretic peptide, and this hormone is released due to the ventricle wall stretching, so the lower part of the heart. When those walls start stretching, that's released. So if you have a patient who has elevated BNPs, they're fairly sick, I would say. These two hormones work against angiotensinogen 2. So they stop the effects of aldosterone, ADH, and renin, which in turn makes for no fluid volume overload. And that is how we raise the blood pressure, kind of fix our fluid volume overload or our fluid deficit, and prevent a fluid volume overload from occurring in the body.